every Moai statue is essentially a gravestone, but with a twist.
Beneath the windswept silence of Easter Island, where the stoic Moai have stared toward the horizon for centuries, something ancient has finally stirred. For generations, these colossal stone faces have been the island's greatest mystery, but it turns out they were only guarding a deeper secret. Recently, archaeologists digging beneath the volcanic soil uncovered something that defies logic, rewriting everything we thought we knew about the island's origins and the people who built its monuments. This isn't just another artifact or burial site, it's a discovery that hints at a forgotten chapter of human history, one hidden right under the feet of those legendary statues. What they found beneath Easter Island will make you question how much of the past we've truly unearthed. Join us as we uncover their long-kept secrets. For centuries, Easter Island, also known as Rapa Nui to its native people, has existed as both an archaeological riddle and a cultural icon. It stands as one of the most isolated inhabited places on Earth, rising from the middle of the Pacific Ocean, more than 2,000 miles from the nearest continental shore. Yet, from that isolation came one of humanity's most recognizable legacies, known as the Moai.
For centuries, the world believed Easter Island's stone heads were silent, empty monuments. But when archaeologists finally dug beneath them, they uncovered something no one was prepared for. These weren't just heads. They were full-bodied giants, deliberately buried, standing over hidden chambers, sacred pigments, and signs of a civilization far more advanced than history ever admitted. And the deeper scientists looked, the clearer one truth became. Easter Island wasn't abandoned. It was erased. So why was this buried, and what were these stone guardians really protecting? For centuries, the world believed the stone heads of Easter Island were unfinished, simple monuments, faces carved from rock, staring endlessly into nothing. That belief shattered the moment archaeologists dug beneath one of them. What they found was not erosion, not coincidence, but intention. Beneath the soil stood a full body, arms carved in stone, hands folded across the chest, a spine etched with symbols no one could explain. Some of these figures stretched nearly 30 feet tall, buried upright like sentinels frozen in time. These were never just heads. They were giants, lowered into the earth on purpose. And the burial wasn't rushed. Layers of soil had been carefully placed over generations, sealing the statues while preserving every carved detail. Nothing collapsed, nothing fell. Someone made the decision to hide them. Even more unsettling was their direction. For decades, textbooks claimed the statues faced the ocean, but excavation proved otherwise. They faced inland, toward villages, toward homes, like guards. At the base of several statues, archaeologists found stone tools left behind mid-work, not broken, not scattered, abandoned, as if the builders had simply stopped and never returned. Why would a society invest generations carving giants only to bury them alive? Why hide guardians meant to be seen? And if these statues were placed to watch over something, what exactly were they standing on top of? When archaeologists moved away from the statues and into the volcanic slopes of Easter Island, they expected rubble. What they found instead was color, bright red. Hidden beneath layers of stone were carefully sealed pits filled with fine crimson powder. Not dirt, not clay, a pigment. Tests revealed it was made from crushed iron-rich minerals, hematite and magnetite, processed by hand into a powerful red dust. This wasn't accidental, it was engineered. Each pit was lined, covered, preserved. And the timing stunned researchers. These pigment stores were created after the island's forests disappeared. That meant something critical. The people didn't collapse when resources grew scarce. They adapted. In Polynesian belief, red symbolized power, life, and divine protection. This pigment was used to coat statues, mark bodies, and stain sacred spaces during rituals. It wasn't decoration, it was authority made visible.
But here's the part no one expected. The amount of pigment buried across the island was massive, far more than what survival demanded. Producing it took planning, labor, and leadership. Why invest so much energy into ritual color when food and resources were limited? The answer suggested something deeper than art or belief. Red pigment wasn't just paint, it was a signal, a way to activate the statues, to mark sacred ground, to prepare places meant to be entered only by the chosen. Because when archaeologists followed the pigment trails, they didn't lead to villages. They led beneath the stone platforms holding the giants. And what lay below those platforms wasn't earth, it was architecture. For centuries, the statues of Easter Island were described as empty, hollow-eyed, unfinished. That assumption collapsed in 1978. Fragments uncovered near several Moai weren't broken tools or debris, they were eyes, carved from white coral, inlaid with pupils of obsidian or red volcanic stone. Each piece shaped to fit a specific statue, no two exactly the same. These eyes were never meant to be installed during carving, they were placed last. Only after a statue was moved, raised, and positioned over sacred ground did it receive eyes. Until that moment, the Moai was considered inert, stone without power. When the eyes were set, everything changed. In Polynesian belief, sight meant awareness. Awareness meant authority. With eyes in place, the statues became living symbols, channels for ancestral power known as mana. They no longer represented the dead, they embodied them. Sunlight reflected off the coral, making the figures appear awake, alert, watching the villages below. This wasn't decoration, it was activation. And not every statue received eyes. Only the most important did. That revealed a clear hierarchy. Some ancestors mattered more. Some locations held more power. The Moai weren't facing the ocean to be admired. They were facing inland to monitor, to protect, or to warn. And suddenly, the placement of each statue made sense. They stood near fresh water, near farmland enriched with stone mulch, near places survival depended on. These weren't monuments to the past, they were tools of control in the present. But control requires memory, and memory requires more than stone. To preserve power across generations, the island needed something far rarer, a way to record knowledge itself. And that knowledge was carved not in stone, but in wood. In the mid-1800s, long after the Moai had fallen silent, missionaries on Easter Island noticed something strange: wooden tablets, small, weathered, covered edge to edge with symbols no one could read. At first, they were dismissed as decoration. That mistake would haunt archaeology for generations. Closer study revealed the carvings followed strict rules: rows of figures, people, birds, plants, shapes, cut with obsidian blades and shark teeth. The lines didn't move left to right, they reversed direction every row, a rare system called reverse Booster-Fiden. This wasn't art, it was structure. The system became known as Rongorongo, the only known written script ever developed in the entire Pacific. Not borrowed, not imported, created. And the implications were explosive. Writing requires planning, memory, and trained specialists. It means information mattered enough to preserve beyond a single lifetime. But there was a problem. By the time outsiders discovered the tablets, almost no one could read them. Only a handful of elders remembered fragments, and they died soon after. The knowledge vanished in a single generation. Even more unsettling was what the tablets were made from.
The wood came from trees that no longer exist on the island. That meant the script was older than deforestation, older than collapse myths. Some researchers believe the symbols recorded chants, rituals, and ancestral lineages. Others think they tracked seasons, stars, or power transfers. Not stories. Because when a society loses writing, it doesn't lose intelligence. It changes how power is passed. And on Easter Island, that change came fast. Suddenly, the Moai stopped rising. Tools were left behind. Belief itself shifted. So what force was strong enough to replace stone giants and written memory? The answer wasn't buried. It was waiting at the edge of a cliff. Around the year 1400, something on Easter Island changed, suddenly and completely. The Moai stopped rising. Quarries went silent. Half-carved giants were abandoned where they lay, still attached to the mountain. Ropes were dropped. Tools were left exactly where hands had released them. This wasn't a slow decline. It was a hard stop. Archaeologists soon realized the island's belief system had shifted overnight. Worship moved away from stone giants and towards something faster, riskier, alive. At the edge of a volcanic crater stood a new ceremonial center called Orongo. Stone houses clung to the cliff, facing the open ocean. The walls were carved with strange figures, human bodies with bird heads, eggs, and symbols of flight. This was the rise of the Birdman cult. Every year, men from rival clans competed in a deadly ritual. They climbed down razor-sharp cliffs, swam through shark-filled waters, and raced to a distant island to retrieve the first egg of a sacred seabird. Only one would survive. The winner's sponsor became the Birdman, leader of the island for a year. Power no longer came from ancestry buried beneath statues. It came from endurance, from danger, from proving favor with the gods in real time. This wasn't chaos, it was adaptation. When resources tightened and old systems strained, the island didn't collapse, it reset. But this shift came at a cost. The Moai, once living guardians, were no longer needed. Some were pushed over. Others were left unfinished forever. And centuries later, outsiders would see this moment and misunderstand it completely. Because the greatest lie about Easter Island was still waiting to be exposed. For decades, the story of Easter Island was told as a warning. A society that cut down its forests, destroyed its land, and collapsed under its own mistakes. Textbooks repeated it, documentaries echoed it. But when archaeologists looked closer, the evidence didn't match the story. There were no signs of mass warfare, no piles of weapons, no fields of broken bones.
Obsidian tools, once labeled as weapons, showed wear from cutting plants, not people. Skeletons showed little trauma. Villages showed planning, order, and continuity. Even more damning was the timeline. Advanced farming systems continued long after deforestation. Soil was enriched with stone mulch to trap moisture and nutrients. Crops were protected from wind and drought. The population didn't collapse, it stabilized. DNA evidence confirmed it. Generations lived, adapted, and organized themselves without chaos. So where did the collapse story come from? It came centuries later. When Europeans arrived in the 1700s, they didn't find a fallen society. They found one already reshaped, but still alive. Then came the real destruction. In the 1800s, slave raids tore thousands from the island. Foreign diseases followed. Within decades, nearly the entire population was gone, from thousands to barely 100 survivors. And with them vanished the ability to read the tablets, raise the giants, and complete the rituals. The tragedy wasn't ecological failure, it was erasure. But even after that,
The island kept its memory, quietly, stubbornly. And now, new technology is uncovering truths that were never meant to disappear. Because beneath Easter Island, the story isn't finished. It's still unfolding. Today, Easter Island is being scanned in ways its builders could never have imagined. Ground-penetrating radar sweeps beneath the statues. 3D models map every crack and carving. DNA analysis traces bloodlines once thought erased. And the results are unsettling. Anomalies appear beneath several Moai platforms, voids where no chambers have been opened, pathways that stop abruptly, spaces sealed deeper than any excavation has reached. Archaeologists now believe some structures were never meant to be entered again. Not tombs, vaults. The Moai above them were positioned with precision, aligned to fresh water, farmland, and ritual routes. They weren't placed for beauty, they were placed for control. Even the way the statues were moved supports it. Experiments show the giants weren't dragged, they were walked upright using ropes, exactly as island stories claimed. The statues didn't just arrive, they were led, and then buried. That changes everything. It suggests the island wasn't abandoned or broken, it was intentionally sealed. When belief systems changed, when writing vanished, when power shifted, the old guardians were lowered into the earth, still standing, still watching, waiting. Modern Rapa Nui descendants continue to protect these sites, refusing full excavation in many areas, not out of fear, out of respect, because some knowledge isn't meant to be recovered all at once, and some questions are better left unanswered, for now. Because if the Moai were buried to guard something, and if parts of the island remain untouched, then the most important discovery beneath Easter Island may still be there, watching.